One of my favorite comments was from a director of Staten Island Mental Health a few months ago. We were part of the Million Trees project that the city put on of trying to get 1 million small saplings distributed around all 5 boroughs. The director of Staten Island Mental Health wanted to know how many trees we needed. And over the phone, he says, "You guys are pretty big church, right?" We met, Michael and I met, and he was surprised of how small physically the building is, how small it is membership-wise, because he said, "You're one of the few churches that I hear about across the borough. If any church pops up, Oakwood is popping up." I'm Reverend Larry Sally, and I've been the pastor at Oakwood here for about since 2008. One of the words in the title of the church is community. The church has been around for 1925, whatever that comes to, with multiple AA groups, multiple NA groups, 2 ARP groups at the moment. We have a food and baby pantry that, for being a very small church, runs about 3,000 to 4,000 bags of food out every year.
We have toiletries, we have baby food and formula. Over here we have canned soups. We started about 8 years ago in a little metal cabinet, which is right there. And now we moved into the Sunday school room. We got the Sunday school, another room. People come in, they sign in. That's all we ask them. We don't ask them for any identification. We don't turn anybody down, since we're not part of like Project Hospitality or New York City Food Bank. We all feel, being Christians, that it's between their conscience and God. Right.
Years ago, I used to come here as a kid at the pool hall. It was a place to get off the streets, It was a great thing because we really had nothing to do around here. So we used to play pool there and foosball and air hockey and stuff like that. Then I became a Boy Scout here and with Troop 44. And after that, I ended up meeting Larry through the food pantry, which was a great help to me because at times I've had a slump in work in my construction business. And when you need food, you got to look around, and they were like right near I live right a few blocks from here, and I found out that they had a food pantry here, came, and they were great to me. I mean, they gave me bags of food, which really was an asset to me. I went to one pantry locally, and I told them I was hungry, went and came home with a bag of ketchup, relish, and mustard, and I said, "Now what do I put this on?" So here, like I said, I came here and I had 2 bags of food. I was very content when I went home.
We just tell them there are certain amounts that you can have because this is
Right.
all we have.
Yes.
And they're pretty, they're understanding. And we don't make up bags for them because we know a lot of them they feel horrible. They really don't want to be here. But a lot of them are put in a position where they have to, and I'm thankful that we're here to help them.
All of these are empty right now, but this is what the Boy Scouts usually fill up. They fill up all our bins, and we have a lot of extra bins over there in the corner. The Boy Scouts have been wonderful. They built us wood shelving, and they do their annual food drive, which really helps us survive through the year.
The Scouts, the church, everybody come together, we help out, we do certain projects. I believe it teaches the young boys how to become young men, and it teaches them that they have to give back and not just take from the community.
We also get small donations from AARP. We have 2 chapters here in the church, and they drop off about 10 bags of food a month, which helps.
We do depend on the neighbors and people in the congregation and the Boy Scouts to bring food, but sometimes it's just not enough. So we did just recently get a grant for $3,500, which will be a wonderful boost, because there are those times when we don't have food coming in.
But we do have a lot of people that do come that are really strapped for money, and so I'm glad we're here that we can help them.
Yes.
Oakwood is located about a half a mile from one of the biggest hits from Hurricane Sandy. There was no damage to the church or to the parsonage, which meant that we now had a task at hand. What did God want us doing when He didn't destroy the church, or it didn't allow the church to be harmed, whatever way you want to say that? We were left with a role. We had to continue that role that had been in place long before Sandy, but we stepped up with additional relief work, additional support.
We were a central hub with the hurricane. Liz and I were here 24/7.
Forget it.
The entire sanctuary was covered with clothes. You couldn't even see the pews. All the rooms downstairs were filled with comforters and beddings and all food supplies, water, cleaning supplies. You couldn't move in the building. We had gotten so many donations.
We helped about 250 families we provided food for. And it was wonderful, the outpouring of generosity. We had people coming from different states,
Right.
bringing us truckloads of food, clothing, even animal food.
And I made hot cocoa while they were out there.
Yes.
And I brought them more hot chocolate while they were online.
Yes.
We tried to make it as fun because the
Yes.
tears and the hugs and the kisses they wanted from us,
Yes.
that's really all they wanted was a hug. It was tough.
Yes.
It was, unless you were here, you did not realize what went down. It was just horrific. Even the police officers were coming here and staying here and helping us. And at one point they were so cold, they asked us for gloves and scarves because they were out there for so long. And they're not allowed to take anything from us. But we turned out, we said, no, those are ours. But they were freezing, they were ice cold, and they were so, so, so wonderful.
Yes.
They really were.
I mean, I remember this hurricane, Hurricane Sandy, and then the one back in the 90s when people slept at Oakwood for weeks. I mean, there were cots and people were preparing food in the fellowship hall.
Going back to 92, I mean, I was just someone who lived down the road, and they actually had people sleeping here because we had no place to sleep, and the church wasn't affected by the flood. And people were sleeping in our basement because we still had heat and hot, water and electricity. With Sandy, we couldn't offer that service because we actually were hit. We didn't have the water in the basement, but we didn't have electricity or heat, so we couldn't give them those comforts. But we were here to give whatever else we could, even if it was emotional support or physical support.
The outreach for people with clothing and food and household items was enormous. And there was a great reach out. I think that was one reason why, God really spared Oakwood, the building of Oakwood, from being hit with water, because it was needed for a place for people to come and be aided and helped.
The church virtually had no damage physically to the church, but it was hit financially, and a number of our members had to move away, had to relocate, had to find other jobs, lost their jobs, lost their homes, and things of that nature. So they were hit heavily, and we can only go to them so much. They're trying to rebuild their lives. With that said, we do have a younger population, and that do not have the financial resources that maybe some of our older families have had. And for a variety of reasons, they've retired, moved on to other states, and so forth. So while we have the population coming in, the funding itself that they're able to bring is diminished while expenses increase dramatically. Our insurance, for example, is close to $2,500 a month on the two houses and the sanctuary, the church, before we even touch anything else. And that's each and every month. That has to come from somewhere. So we're in an interesting challenge of how to pay our bills, but also do the outreach that God's called us to do, which we spend most of our time doing between all of our groups, special events, AAs, NAs, and so on. So what I've been proud of is that we didn't retrench, we didn't close quarters and say we're going to take care of ourselves, and if we can get back into doing other things, we will. What we did is we found ourselves actually opening our doors much more than we were. Figuring out how can we reach out more, how can we help additional folks with food, additional folks with counseling.
We have several groups that use our space, self-help groups, and then every once in a while there'll be other communities to help people, still helping people from Sandy, as a matter of fact.
We're here for all anonymous groups, the senior citizens, the food pantry.
The building's used all the time for various reasons to support people.
I mean, we hear a cause and we're there. We want to help as much as we can, and it's our mission to be here for the community.
I was teaching martial arts lessons in my basement. I was working for the narcotics division of the NYPD as a detective. And the children were coming to my home, and there were so many that they were breaking the walls in my house, and my wife started breaking my chops. So we had heard there used to be a karate school here many years ago. And we came here and spoke to Pastor Rowe. I believe his first name was God Rowe. And I said I had so many students, could he facilitate us? And Pastor Rowe used to box in his youth, and he says it would be very interesting to have children in the neighborhood training coming off the street. Yes, and that's how we started. The church has been extremely helpful to my organization. It would be virtually impossible for us to have a facilitate all of these students in one location. As far as a safe place for the children to work out where the parents could sit and watch, a very quiet location. Yeah, we couldn't have done it without this church.
Since we've met here, and my scoutmaster was the scoutmaster for 20 years prior to me, the church has never asked us for one dime. They've never charged us for storing any of our equipment or our meetings, which take place every Monday night between 7 and 9. So without them, we wouldn't have a place to meet, we wouldn't have a place for our equipment, and it would be very difficult for us to have a troop or run a troop efficiently.
I run a music school, and I was looking for a location for my recital, and my dad had recommended this church. And so when I came to look at it and I met the people here, you know, they let us have our recital here for free. It was for charity, and we filled the food pantry, and I just loved the church.
We have so many groups that work out of here. The reality to that is that we don't really charge a donation or a rent to most of these groups. They do help us with the expense. But what happens is when the group is used, you know, when they're offering their services free of charge in the community, the reality is we're still paying rent. Paying insurance. We're still paying water. We're still paying electric. We're still paying gas for heating. All of these expenses are increased when the building is open. We can't turn them down because it's cold, whatever it happens to be. So our expenses increase. But at the same time, the physical infrastructure of the building must be in good shape.
The maintenance is important here. If there's a leak in the ceiling, if there's a leak in the roof, everything comes downhill. We're at the lowest point. Just the little things, it goes a long way. It helps us to come here, it helps us to continue to grow.
The church does a very good job of trying to keep up with the maintenance. We also help out as much as possible. Through Eagle Scout projects and other such service projects for the church. So without being able to upkeep, it can make a hazardous location, and all these units and groups that utilize the church wouldn't be able to be here.
Well, right now, the biggest structural situation that we needed to repair was our sidewalks. We've had some people who have fallen outside, and they're not big problems, but they're small. They're there, and people can get hurt. So we were able to, we have a lot of property. We have 3 different properties. We have a lot of land. I think that the grounds look beautiful, but the sidewalks needed to be corrected. We were able to, with fundraising, to take care of one section. Now with the grant, we'll be able to take care of that. One of our properties, we need a new roof. I don't know where we're going to get that money, but one problem at a time, and with God's grace, it always works out. So I'm not worried. We'll figure it out, and God will help us, and we'll have that roof repaired.
What we want to continue to do is to be conscious of what God is calling us to be about. We're handed a certain amount of resources. This is what we're using. So we are very conscious here locally of how do we keep our expenses at a bare minimum, but still do the programming that we need to do.
Larry asked me if I could handle some of the work here, and I said yes. So we waterproofed the whole building. The room started smelling like mildew. Paint was falling off the walls. It started becoming a disaster. So we last summer, we got everything pretty much done, renovated most of the whole building. And a lot of yard work we did, and painting his garage and the parsonage.
One of the Eagle Scout projects was to replace 27 yards of concrete, which is a lot of concrete. It took us several days, I believe over a course of 3 weeks. It took us, I would say, a good 8 days to dig out the dirt, to pitch the driveway properly, to pour the concrete. That's one of the service projects we've done here at Eagle Scout Project. Another one was beautification, where we have a couple of flower beds and signs that the church has. Some of our Eagle Scout projects have been to fix that up, put a nice retaining wall around it to make it look cleaner and nicer, keep maintenance on the shrubs. Another project was we have almost like a horse fence that goes around the property. One of the Eagle Scouts projects was to replace that. Also inside the church, we've done painting, maintenance. I remember one time one of the outside doors was broken and we replaced that. That was a big expense, and it was a safety issue. Basically the doors were so heavy it fell off the hinges. We had to custom order the door and replace that. So we try and work hand in hand with the church. They take care of us so well always, and they never ask for a dime. So when we can, when we have money, we try and give back a little as well.
Donations are a huge part. We definitely are thankful for that. We could not have survived, quite honestly, without some of our outside donations. We partnered with a couple of different groups over the years, and they have been frankly amazing. So we're hoping that we address their concerns as well. We want them to know that we are very careful of how we use their monies. We are very frugal and very cautious of how we spend this. We have a whole series of checks and balances in place that says, can we do this? And what is its impact in the community? And what is its impact in the church?
This church has a particular, it has that it factor. It has that sparkle.
Give it a visit, give it a shot, you'll feel it. You'll see the difference. When you come here, you're very welcome. The people here are all very loving people and caring people.
Their outreach to the community is here and needs to continue, and I think that will be our strength.
You know what? Prayer works, and it'll all work out.